Greetings, greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. We are live, streaming live, starting a bit late today. Major apologies. We have Professor Kaba was in the background a short while ago. We were having major difficulties trying to get online, so I had to restart the computer. But now we are live and absolutely delighted that we are going to be able to go live with you today. Professor Kaba will be rejoining us in a very short while. So family, we are in for quite a journey today. Oh my days. A phenomenal spiritual journey we're going to be having with the Master Teacher Professor Kaba. Please put the words out, let the family, let everybody know that we are live. Major technical difficulties behind the scenes, but we have managed to resolve that now. So let me just get a message over. Yeah, to those of you that were trying to connect with us, thank you so much for your patience. Let me know if you are in the house and if you are seeing us right now. So family, yes. Oh, JJ saying good evening. JJ's in the house. Brilliant to have you in the house, JJ. Apologies for lateness. Good to know that you're watching us from the UK. Jonathan's in the house. Lily's in the house. Yes, my guest, you know, we were talking backstage a short while ago. He just logged off because of the technical difficulties and will be logging back on very shortly. Oh my gosh, it was like panic station backstage. Couldn't get on. So absolutely delighted to be black with you right now. And family, as I wait for our guests to rejoin us, I just want to remind some of you who may have missed a couple of shows that wow, you need to go to my YouTube channel or watch some of the previous videos. We've had some phenomenal guests on the show. We have been getting some awesome teachings from some great historians, some great Pan-Africanists, for those who have been spending decades upon decades actually studying our history, and they have bringing that knowledge and that information to us on the Sister Shanice show. And you know, we have been so I don't know, blessed, or just, you know, we've been receiving some greats here on our channel, and it has absolutely been an honor. As I said, we had some technical difficulties, hence why we're late. So I'll just give everybody a few moments to come back on, and we'll also give our guests a few moments to rejoin us as well. And so just to remind you, family, of some of the guests that we've got coming up. Yes, let's go to the schedule and look at the guests. Some of the guests that we've got coming up. Just to let you know, I've also added a Monday evening series to the Sister Shanice show. So we're now going to be having some Monday evening shows. Yes, we're responding to the demand for more shows. Can't quite go full time. People are saying, oh, you need to go full time and be doing every day. But, you know, just can't go full time right now. Haven't got the capacity to do that, but have added a Monday evening show. So there's going to be a new series, and we'll see how that goes. Yesterday, on Monday, the 30th of May, we were privileged and honored to have our very own Leo Muhammad and Andrew Morris in the studio and other guests. And we were giving honor and respect to Sasha Johnson, one of our Pan-Africanist revolutionary rising stars here in the UK, who modeled her movement and her stance on the Black Panther. And what happens? Suspiciously, she got shot in the head, and she's in a comatized position. It's in hospital right now. But we had a show to send energies and vibrations her way to rise her up. That was a show on Monday. This evening show, we've got Professor Kaba, who's going to be rejoining us now as well. Then next Monday, the 6th of June, we've got Obi Ogobunya. If you don't know him, family, get to know. He is a formidable Pan-Africanist historian as well. He's going to be coming to us on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we've got another awesome, absolutely awesome historian, Dr. Kefusu Ahiba Ang. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't know, this man, I think he's been hiding his talent under the bushel, because I've only recently come across him, and he is a powerhouse, family. So we've got him next Wednesday, the 8th of June. Then back on Monday, the 13th, we're going to be homing in on what's happening in Somalia. And I have a special guest speaker who is going to be joining me for that session. On Somalia. Didn't know, that they're on the verge of a famine, or, it's a famine situation in Somalia right now. We need to know what's going on, family, and what our people are experiencing in different parts of the world. And so that's going to be happening on Monday the 13th. Please note that the Monday shows are at a different time. The Monday shows are going to be at 10 p.m. UK time. That's 10 p.m. UK time. So that is the time of our Monday shows. But the Wednesday shows, we will continue those shows at 8 p.m. UK time. Obviously, subject to me being able to get on. The challenges that we have here when we're bringing, our own narrative from a Pan-African centered perspective. So, family, thank you for your patience and for bearing with us, as we have the challenges and go forward. So, hopefully I'm not going to be left in the lurch. I'm sure our brother Kaba is going to be rejoining us. As I said, we were together behind stage 15 minutes before we were due to go live. Then when I was trying to hit the live button to go live, it just would not happen. So I had to shut everything down. And, our brother is hopefully going to be rejoining us very, very shortly. In fact, let me make that magic call and just let him know that we are now live, and ask him if he can hit that Zoom button again. And to the family that's in the house actually watching, yes, Professor Kaba, we are live. Please do log back on. Thank you so, so much. Awesome, awesome. Family, he's coming on. He's coming on. Okay, so to everybody that's already in the house, thank you so, so much. Please hit the like button as you come through the door. Let us know where in the world that you're watching us from. I'm going to be getting the link, and I am going to be sharing that back screen to everybody on my WhatsApp group as well, because you know what it's like trying to find us sometimes here on Zoom. So it's going to be coming through the door very, very shortly. And also to let you know that on Monday, the 20th of June, we've got Black Rasta, who's going to be joining us all the way from Ghana. He's the author, singer, writer of a fantastic tune celebrating the life of Kwame Nkrumah. And Black Rasta, a revolutionary Pan-Africanist artist who sends messages to us as a people through song and music. He's going to be joining us on the 20th of June. And then on the 22nd of June, we've got Dr. Marie Charles. Dr. Marie Charles is just blazing up the airways right now. She is another gem that has recently kind of surfaced on the history scene. And my, we have the privilege and honor of having her on the 22nd of June. But as you can see, family, as you can see, we have the master teacher himself, the Black with us in the house, none other than Professor Kaba. Thank you so much for your patience, Professor. I was explaining the challenges that we were having behind scene and behind backstage. And thank you so much for your patience.
All things in divine order, my sister. This is what technology does.
It does indeed. And so thank you so much for your patience. I was getting a bit worried. I thought, oh my gosh, I hope he hasn't given up on us because of the technicals. And so, family, as you can see, he is Black. I'm going to be behind stage in a short while, and I'm going to be posting the link to everybody. And in the meantime, I just want to let you know that our great Professor Kaba is going to be speaking to us today on African spirituality, which is such an important topic to us as a people, because, we are spiritual people, are we not? But I think, our spirituality has been maybe locked down to a large extent due to these religions that have been imposed on us as a people during, our times of invasion and colonization and enslavement. But, in us, we all know that there's more to us than meets the eye. And I have a feeling that tonight we're going to be unpacking so much information about a side of us that we also want to tap into. But before we go down that road, and before I introduce to you via the bio our guest, while I'm in the background posting, Professor Kaba, I wonder if you could just share with us, maybe some current affairs information, something that's happening in the USA right now, maybe some projects that you're involved in that you want to share with us. Please do, while I spotlight you and do some posting backstage.
Well, my sister Shanice, I want to first thank you for this great opportunity to be with you and to be with my family who is listening in your audience. Every chance I get to speak to our people to help us understand what it is that we have to do for the future, for our children, for children that are yet to be born. That becomes so very important to me, because that's what this is all about. When I study and when I look at and research our history, the one thing that we have always done is focused on the future. And the concept of looking at the past is like the metaphor I use in terms of a slingshot. And we know that in a slingshot, you pull back and you have a projectile in the sling. But as you pull back, you're not pulling back to stay back. You're pulling back in order to project forward. And so that becomes important for us to understand, because so many of our people, and specifically our children, and if I could just stick a pin here to talk about my background in terms of being an educator here in New York, in the Bronx, for 31 years, formally, and being a college professor for 14 years, that one of the things that stands out to me is the question that children always ask. And it's a very pertinent question. And it tells us exactly where the child's mind is. And that is, why is it important to go back to the past? Why is it important? What is going back there going to do for us going forward? And the question comes from the fact, going back to the concept of the metaphor with the slingshot, that I'm not pulling you back to stay back. The concept is that the further back I can pull you, your mind, your thoughts, your ideas, your knowledge and wisdom, the further back I can pull you, the further into the future you can project yourself.
Wow.
And that is what becomes so important, because what is it? Why is it important to go to the past? What is it going to the past going to do? And one of the things that I've often said is that a prophet is not a psychic. A prophet is a good historian. Because when you know what happened in the past, You can interpret what's happening in the present, and you can predict what's going to happen in the future.
Mhm.
And when you say, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then when the time comes and it happens, people say, wow, how did you know that? You know, they get into the twilight zone, or they get into into this concept of how could you have known that? You know, like, were you touched?
Mhm.
And the idea is no. I'm a historian. And when you know what happened in the past, you know what is going to happen in the future.
Ashe.
And what I'd like to tell the family, particularly our young people, who I always try to speak to, because I know as young people, well, as adults, as mature adults, we have a collective understanding in history. There are things that we understand. So as we observe the events, we can interpret them. But children, geniuses that they are, do not have the collective experience. And so what they see happening sometimes seems to be set in stone that they will never be able to change. And I want to tell us that we are heading towards our promised land. We are heading towards that time. And even though the time looks a certain way, Black folk around the world are in a better position today than we have ever been before. And I know that it may seem dismal, but it's not. Because the great scholar and warrior Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, once told me, the closer you get to the Creator, the closer the devil will get to you.
Wow.
And here in the United States, there is a battle as it relates to school. And it's called, well, they're calling it CRT, which is the critical race theory. And they're arguing that they do not want the critical race theory to be taught in schools. But the fact is, family, you can't teach the critical race theory in school. The critical race theory is an advanced legal class taught in law school. You wouldn't be able to teach CRT if you wanted to. And the ignorance of the perspective of these individuals is glaring for those that understand what's happening. They're using it as a smokescreen. They're using this concept to create a fear in peoples of European descent. They're saying that we don't want you to make our children feel bad about being white. But what are they actually telling you? And that's why we have to analyze this, get the paralysis out the analysis, and look at what they're saying in reality. What they're doing is they are recognizing as a people how horrible they have treated Black people and indigenous Americans. They're admitting it. And they're saying, no, you can't tell the truth to my child. Because if they knew what we did to you, they'd feel bad. This is what they're telling us. And as a people, we have to battle the reality and not the illusion. Renaud Camus, a Frenchman, came up with a concept. He wrote a book from France. He wrote a book called Le Grand Remplacement, which means the great replacement. And it's catching fire. 2 weeks ago, an insane person of European descent went into a supermarket and murdered 10 people. And in his writings explaining why he did what he did, he spoke about the fact that melanated people are replacing non-melanated people. And that in order for the white race to remain supreme, which my sister, white supremacy is an oxymoron. Oxymoron is when you use two words that are opposing each other. Okay. It's like saying crazy smart.
Yeah, just don't make any sense at all.
None at all. They are opposing words. There is nothing supreme about being white.
Ashe. True talk. True
Now,
talk.
let me say this scientifically, because I want us to understand what I mean by that, because I look at science. I tend to want to teach science and not emotion. I don't use the word supreme or superior and inferiority. Those are not scientific terms. The scientific terms to be used is dominant gene and recessive gene. Dominant and recessive. The dominant gene is everything that tends towards black. The recessive gene is all those things that move away from the archetype dominant gene that is black. So non-pigmented skin is recessive. Blue eyes is recessive. Blonde hair is recessive. Black hair is dominant. Black eyes are dominant. So that it's important to understand that when we speak in scientific terms, and that we don't take things personal and get emotional. So the great replacement theory that they're talking about is not that melanated people are replacing non-melanated people. The real replacement occurred when Europeans left Europe and came to America and replaced the indigenous people. The replacement theory is when Europeans went to Australia and New Zealand and in India and in Asian areas of the world and replaced the indigenous people. What's actually happening today is that the European ethnic stock, because European is not a race, Asian is not a race. There is only one race on the planet, and that's the human race. And that human race was conceived, born, nurtured, sustained, educated, civilized in Africa. And the first family, the first human family, were a group of Africans known as the Twa Mbuti, the Khoisan, derogatorily called the Pygmies. They are the original human family of Central and Southern Africa. And they still exist today in great numbers. And many of them still live within us. We are them, and they are us. And you spoke about my good sister, brilliant sister, whom I've known for a while, Dr. Marie Charles, who has come out with a phenomenal, I just received her latest edition of her magazine, where she highlights, not just through words, but through visuals, these original human beings. And so what we have to do as a people is get the paralysis out of our analysis. And we have to study our history. And the further back you go, the further black you go.
Hey!
The further black you can project yourself into the future, because present day peoples understand this. Now, when I had the opportunity and the great pleasure and honor of visiting my family in UK, first time was in 2009. I then revisited our family in 2019, but I went to Birmingham then. I've been told that melanated people outnumber non-melanated people in UK now. They don't want to tell you that. Because demographics is the study of populations. If Black folk understood what actually is happening, then they would understand the power that they have. And they would understand the governing systems that the Western world has put into place, which favors them, peoples of European descent. For those of you who may have heard what's happening here in the United States, the last election in 2020 proved my point. No matter how you feel about the Democrats, you know, Democrats are just as bad as the Republicans. Okay, let's be real. Malcolm X told us that Democrats are sly foxes and Republicans are brute wolves, but they both belong to the dog family. But Malcolm X also told us that Black folk must become sophisticated as it relates to the governing systems that we live in. And just don't throw it away. Learn how to use it for your benefit. Understand what voting is and what it does. And understand that militarily, in military science, what I learned is whatever your enemy wishes to take from you, that is the weapon that they most fear, that you have. And so if they're doing everything here in the United States to take away the vote from Black folk, they're telling you that that is a powerful weapon against them. So we have to get the paralysis out of our analysis and understand that from the very beginning of Europeans leaving Europe and going around the world and creating murder and mayhem, they created a system that was meant to always keep them in place. And what we have to do is learn that system, dismantle it, and then create a system based on Ma'at.
Ashe, Ashe. Wow, 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 Professor Kaba, you have said so much. We've learned so much already just from your, brief opening there. I haven't even introduced you yet to our audience, which I need to do, but wow, so much has been said. I won't even try and comment on everything that's been said because I just want to leave way for you, Professor Kaba. But I'm just going to quickly welcome everybody as they come through the door, introduce you to our audience and hand the floor back over to you. In the meantime, if you could please put your social media links again in the chat for me. I know you did it before, but we had to restart. and then we will come right back at you. So let me just go over to my speaker mode, so that we can allow Professor Kaba to be putting these details in the chat. So where can it? Yeah, let me just put you back there. Then you can go ahead and put your details in, and we'll bring you straight in. So family, wow, what an opening we've already had from our Professor Kaba. Welcome to each and every one of you already in the house. Please let us know where in the world you are viewing us from. We are so delighted to have you. Oh my gosh, there's so much I can say about, what our professor's already touched on, but let me not get in the way because of time. Sister Lily, welcome. Itana, you're in the house. Yes, you're here. And thanks to you as well for your works in the background in helping to bring our guest, Professor Kaba, onto the Sister Shanice Show platform, and all the other works that you've been doing to assist. Enough love to you, my sis. Time to succeed in the house as well. Rise up, Sister Verna. Good to know you're in the house. Time to succeed indeed. Rise up, Brother Richmond. Oh, look, the family is coming in the house. Please remember to give us a like as you come through the door. Orisi in the house. Armin, welcome. Watching the Hawks in the house, welcome. Danny Fluffy in the house from the rugby in the UKK, welcome. Watching the Hawks says God addition. God addition has become prevalent. And I know that there's some say the God addiction as well has become prevalent in all African societies and Black people worldwide, as we're addicted to gods that never look like us, and we still suffer and remain poor at the bottom. Oh, that's so true. We probably pray more than any other race on the planet, but we are still economically, politically, socially, etc., at the bottom of the bottom. So rise up for that talk there, Watching the Hawk, who also goes on to say that this is a big topic Black people ain't even scared to talk about because not to offend the foreign god. Yes, the fear has been put in us not to disrespect those gods that have been imposed on us. Ahim, we welcome. S.A. Smith, welcome. Lioness, Mr. Wilfred in the house, welcome. Please put your comments, your thoughts in the chat, and we will be going back to the chat room so that we can hear from you, our family. So, make sure that you keep it locked to this channel. Let's hope that our brother has finished putting his details in the chat so I can bring him back in and give him an introduction that he deserves, because family, we are in for a spiritual journey this evening that has already started. Wow. If we knew how great we were as a people, and as our brother said, the further back you go, the further black it gets. It's so true. It's wonderful. And that's certainly what archaeologists find all the time. The deeper they dig, the blacker their finds. Wow. So we're going to be going on a spiritual journey, and it's not just about religion at all. It's going to be, I think, very much about, the divine questions that we ask ourselves. Who are we? What is our purpose? Where are we? What has brought us here? I even had that question being asked on my radio show earlier today, where we were talking about, the different species on the earth. And as our brother said, there is only one human race. And, we were looking at the different races from a genetics perspective as well. And we were talking about the works of a particular group of genetic scientists that actually found that, they looked into the genotype of orangutans, apes, and Europeans and Africans, and they found that us as Africans, we had 9 strands of DNA, And Europeans only had 6 strands of DNA. Orangutans, they had something like 3 strands of DNA. Apes might have had 4 strands. I'll have to go to my notes to get the details of how many strands they had. Again, proving, that there are differences. They are a different species to us. They are the descendants of Neanderthals from my research, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But what's really important in terms of, like our brother was saying about the replacement theory, they're the ones that have been replacing us by annihilating us and committing genocide across the face of the earth. So we need to really wake up to what's really going on. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves being wiped out completely. But, let's stick to topic. Right, let me find my notes here, and because I need to introduce Professor Kaba to you, because family, we are honored to have today author of honoring Professor William Leo Hansberry, an intellectual libation for the architect of America's African Studies Department and reorganization as an internationally acclaimed Pan-African historian. Professor Kaba, he's also the star expert of the Hidden Colors documentary series, as well as the narrator of the international hit film Out of Darkness. And I think most of us in the UK and parts of Africa will recognize and know Professor Kaba from his great expert advice that he was providing throughout those Hidden Colors series. And he's also was the narrator for the film Out of Darkness. He's an educator, consultant, curriculum and community developer. Professor Kavini is also the principal facilitator and chief executive officer of the African Centered Science Academy, named Per Anchor Temple House of Life. Born in New York, still young and going strong, starred in several critically acclaimed documentaries such as Tarek Nasheed's Hidden Colors, as I've mentioned, from 1 through to 5, and in 1804. And Out of Darkness, the heavy is the crown. He's got a list of starring roles in films and documentaries to his name, family. Absolutely phenomenal career. He's also a featured writer and performer on the Wu-Tang Clan's EP. The saga continues. Wow. Even, an acclaimed track record in the music industry. Collaborated with Cachet Music on his own 2 EP titled From Chaos to Order. And Mi Amor Kaba Huatha received his bachelor's degree in international politics from the University of New York. Wow, there is so much more that we can say about Professor Kaba. Pan-Africanist, African-centered educator, consultant, administrator, staff developer, curriculum writer for over 40 years. And family, he's got a long career and has had a long career in education. And when it comes to education, you have to study the books, you have to do the research, you have to go into depth and detail to be able to teach to parents, to student groups. And his greatest experiences, he said, have been his many classroom visitations around the world, implementing successful strategies in teaching and learning processes. We are honored. I'll bring in more of his CV as we go through today's program, but I just want to step out the way so we can hear from the great Professor Teacher himself, Professor Kaba. We're indeed honored.
My sister, it is my pleasure and it's my honor. Thank you for making this happen. And to all those who are with us in this particular platform, I thank you also. One of the things I've come to realize as I've matured, that the most precious thing that we have as humans is time. And how we spend our time is very important. You can lose all your money and then you can make more. Your houses can burn down and you can build another one. But there'll never be another June 1st, 2022. Mm-hmm. So how you spend your time can never be gotten back. And so I appreciate and respect the fact that you've taken time out of your day, your schedule, to be here with us to have this conversation. We have important things that I think we have to talk about. And as I said earlier, we have to get the paralysis out of the analysis. As the great Senegalese scholar, Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop told us and taught us, when someone wishes to oppress another person, there are three things that they'll take from them. They'll take their history, they'll take their language, and they'll take their psychological factor. The great scholar, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, says that your psychological factor is what he calls the VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. And after the oppressor, or those who wish to oppress, will take your history, your language, your values, your interests, and your principles, they then will superimpose on you their history, their language, their values, interests, and principles. Which means that no matter what decision the oppressed may make in their life, it will never be in their favor, because they're looking at the world through someone else's eyes. And this is what's been happening for the past 500 years. We could go back further, but let's stick with Cristobal Colon, the great deceiver. Let's stick with him. And let's look at a date, 1492. You know, here in America, they say, make America great again. And they often ask me, well, if you want to make America great again, when was America ever great? And I tend to think America was great August 1492, a couple months before Cristobal Colon landed on the shores of the Caribbean. That's the last time America was great. As you see, family, here in the United States, we are being bombarded with violence, from murders of children in Texas to murders of, and they were in school, to murders of peoples of African descent in supermarkets in Buffalo, New York, to 9 African Americans praying in church, South Carolina. Be it a school, a supermarket, or a church. What do all three of those places have in common? There's a chance that there will be no resistance to a violent intruder. So if I may say, those that would wish to perpetrate that violence are cowards.
Yes, indeed.
Run up on some brothers on the corner and try it.
Yes, indeed.
Run up on some sisters that are having a conversation in the hood and try that nonsense. Oh, but you feel comfortable when you're in a church, because chances are there'll be no fight back. You'll be safe in a school with children. There's no fight back. You're safe in a supermarket on a Saturday when people are going in there to shop for the food during the week. Their mind is on trying to put food on the table, not guns in their hands. And so we're dealing with a coward. My mother used to always say, never trigger a mentally disturbed person and never corner a rat, because it's the only 2 times a coward will fight back. And right now in the world that we're living in, this coward knows their time is up. I'm not concerned about them. Family, I'm concerned about us. What are we doing? What do we do? I know them. They do it exactly what they're supposed to do. In fact, my mother used to always say, if you ever want to defeat your enemy, you got to think like your enemy. You can't think like you, because the conclusions you come to are not going to be the way in which they're going to react to you. You have to think like them. And now in my mind, I'm saying to myself, if I were a person of European descent, xenophobic in nature, fear of the foreign, if I were them, what would I do? It's not what I would do as a Black man or you as a Black woman. You can't think like that. What would you do if you were a European American or a European in Europe? What would you do when you know that you are now outnumbered? I would do the same thing they're doing. If I thought like them, I've come to the conclusion I would do the same thing. So now, going back into my own survival mode, as a Black man, as a Black person, my question is, what do I have to do? And my first step, I honestly believe, family, is to love yourself. Love the complexion of your skin, no matter what it may be, from the blackest berry to the most vanilla. As Black people, we come in all shades. When you look in that mirror, you love yourself. You love the width of your nose, the thickness of your lips, the texture of your hair, the way in which your body is shaped. And if you look in the mirror and you don't like how you look, let's say you feel that there are things that you could do to improve yourself, don't look in the mirror and say, I hate how I look. Look in the mirror and say, I love how I look, but I know I have work to do. And then do whatever it is that you have to do to get to that point where you are satisfied in whatever form it may be. But they've got us spending so much money on attempting to look the way you were not born to look. Because the Creator don't make mistakes.
That's
And
right.
however you look is how the Creator wanted to look.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go through exorbitant means to change certain things about yourself, you're disrespecting the Creator. Because the Creator said, no, I birthed you looking like that because I wanted to look like that. And now here you are, you changing all sorts of things about you and you spending all that money. And that money could go into scholarship for children.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're giving other people of other cultures our money and then telling our children, honey, I'm sorry, I can't afford to do certain things. And the money you giving those other people, they're saying to their children, here, honey, this is what I want you to have. So while we're denying our own children scholarship, for whatever reason, wherever the money may go, we are denying our children scholarship while we're giving other people money for them to give their children scholarship. My mind can't function, Sister Shanice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in my head saying this ain't working right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're going out and giving everybody else our money, but we're not supporting our own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a problem with that.
Big problem. Mm-hmm.
We taught the world business.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me speak to Black business. Respect your customer. Don't think that just because you're Black folk have to support you, and that you do not give them good product with good attitude. We have to work together. We have to give our people good quality product.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
We have to embrace them, and we have to make the price for our product affordable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That will create the business that we need. We have to understand that the future wealth of the planet is solar power.
Mm-hmm.
We're teaching our children things in the classroom that have nothing to do with the advancement of our society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I realize, because my wife is from Jamaica,
okay. Mm-hmm.
and I've spoken to her about the educational system of the Caribbean, for instance, where you go through form, okay? We go through grades.
Mm-hmm.
We have high school, we have middle school, we have junior school, junior high school, elementary, early childhood. Whereas in the British system, and probably in the French system also, there is a different gradation of education.
Mm-hmm.
So let me use ages instead of grades, because that way people would understand. In high school, the ages of children basically is between 13 and 18 years of age in high school. They go through 4 years: freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. From 13 to about 18, give or take, but it's 4 years. In their second year of high school, in math, they are scheduled to study geometry. In science, they're scheduled to teach chemistry. I'm going to use those two subjects as an example.
All right.
Okay, they graduate from high school, and then they go to college. This is basically from 18 to about 21, give or take. In college, there are courses that are required. Could be a chemistry class, could be an algebra class, could be a geometry class. There is no reason why a student should have to take a required class in college in chemistry or geometry, unless they're going to major in math or science. Because everything that you learn in college chemistry is the same thing you learned in high school. So why do you have to study that in college? Mm-hmm. Money. It's an edu-business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That chemistry book costs close to $250.
Wow.
It's a 3, maybe 4 credit course if you have lab.
Mm-hmm.
But you had the same class in high school, but the book was cheaper.
It's always about the money, isn't it, Professor Kaba? I mean, we have a curriculum in the UK, one here in Africa, that we really just need to throw out the window, because, you know, it has no relevance at all to our environment and how we need to be, you know, the knowledge that we need to have of the minerals within our environment, how we go about extracting those minerals within our environment, how we turn those minerals into finished products, how we can trade those minerals, you know, especially if you're on the continent and even in Jamaica as well, where there's so much fertile land and there's so much that we really could be learning that is relevant. And you can go through an entire education system in England, in the Caribbean and in Africa and not even learn of, you know, the African basis, the foundation, you know, of all of those curriculums that we're studying. As we know, it all stems from Kemet, but no credit whatsoever given to any of the great Africans, you know, who were the founders of the sciences and the geometry and everything else that you're talking about. We are just going in and coming out with a shackled mindset. Hence why we're even in a situation where we have to talk about loving ourselves so that we shop with each other and can prosper from, you know, the money turning over within our own community. The same miseducation system that has just taken us out of our right mind. It's a mess. It really is. And so much work to be done. So much work to be done. But how, you know, what do we do? How do we go about it? Should we be all working towards having our own educational systems? Because as you said, you know, with their system, it's all about the money, keeping us in there, teaching us an education which is almost irrelevant.
And I had a student in college, brilliant student, majored in biochemistry, double majored, in fact, in Black Studies, which was my department where I was. Double majored, biochemistry and Black Studies. And when she graduated, she could only find a job as a secretary in a veterinarian hospital.
Wow.
What good did that education do for her?
None.
And all that money she spent, she's in debt.
Oh, no.
And the salary she received as a secretary in a veterinarian hospital in no way was able to pay her debt for college. So what did they do? They have a new way to enslave you. Now you're a smart enslaved person, but you're still enslaved.
An education that's not fit for purpose.
Solar power, family. Solar power is the future wealth of the planet. I've known groups in California that they teach the children to build solar panels in attaché case.
Wow. Wow.
And that attaché case can power that house.
Wow. That's education. That is fit for purpose.
And that's an
education that's fit for purpose. That's an education that can give you, you know, an income, you know, that can finance your lifestyle, your family, you know, for life. And it's good for the environment and everything.
It's the future.
It's the future. But, you know, would you get that education within their education system?
That is why we must do this ourselves in after-school programs. West Side Academy.
Rise up, Andrew Muhammad.
Okay.
Yes.
That is what we have to do. And we have to bring the work of Dr. Marie Charles into West Side Academy. And all the other great scholars, Robin Walker.
Yes, yes.
Historians such as him, bring that in. We have this. We can do this.
We can.
You can do it in UK. And you know what's interesting, Sister Shanice? Isn't it interesting that with solar power being the future wealth of the planet, isn't it phenomenal to think that every place on the planet where the sun shines the brightest, the people are the most melanated? Imagine what could happen in Jamaica, in Congo, in Ghana, in Nigeria, teaching the children solar power, how to build solar panels. Because we're going to have to get up off the fossil fuels. Okay, we're going to have to get off of putting gasoline in our cars.
Not without a fight, though, I don't think. I don't know if you've heard this, Professor Kaba, and I don't know to what extent it really is true. But I've seen a YouTube little video going around that says that the security guard that was actually murdered in that supermarket incident in Buffalo was none other than the inventor of some device that would allow cars to run off of water. Mm-hmm. And that his invention obviously potentially could put the energy companies out of business. And he is not, the first inventor to have invented such a device that hasn't actually ended up dead or disappeared. And it was suggested in this video that the others were collateral, but he was the intended target of that shooting. Now, I know what they put out there in terms of the manifesto, touched on that, and I know what their media spin is on. It is on this, but I don't know if there has been any talk or discussion in America where you are about the possible link between this security man, his invention, and his possible assassination.
There is always a link as it relates to anything when a Black man or a Black woman dies. There is always a link. But I've often said to us, what did we learn?
Mm-hmm.
If that is even anywhere near the truth,
mm-hmm.
then that tells us something about the power of water,
mm-hmm.
to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
That tells us water power and the power that water has.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's when you go back into the very beginning, and see, this is why the subtitle of my book, Spirituality Before Religions. And my book is selling, the highest number of sales for the book is here in the US. But the second highest level of selling of the book is in UK.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like that throughout this time. The reason why I wrote Spirituality Before Religions was really to get the community ready for Shabaka's Stone, which is my third book. But in Spirituality Before Religions, I analyze various African documents, the pyramid text, the coffin text, the Book of the Coming Forth Today by Night, the Memphite theology, the Shabaka Stone. And what I do is I show the scientificness of spirituality.
Mm.
And in my book, Spirituality Before Religions, the subtitle is Spirituality is Unseen Science,
mm-hmm.
and Science is Seen Spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
You can't separate the two. It is one and the same, but it's two sides of the same coin. If I showed you a coin that had a head, I wouldn't have to convince you the other side was a tail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I showed you a piece of leather, I wouldn't have to convince you that on the other side was suede. Because you know that they are synonymous, they are symbiotic in nature. Spirituality and science is symbiotic. They're related to each other. And when you understand the concepts of the sun and what our ancestors did in understanding the sun, you then understand that they didn't worship the sun. They recognized that the sun emitted light, heat, and sound energy that created life on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And that the sun was like the eye of Ra, the eye of the creator. And that we didn't get caught up in worshiping animals, but we recognized that the creator gave every animal a godlike quality. So in the bird has the ability to see very well. And so Tehuti, the ibis bird, the falcon, the heru bird, the benu bird was the soul or the ba, to be able to see. He realized that the dog had the ability to discriminate through smell, and that the godlike quality of discrimination in the nose. So what she did was she created Impu, the discriminator, the judge at death, that could discriminate between a good heart and a not so good heart. They created Satan, which is a combination of dogs, who was the destroyer, who destructed things. Now we get the impression Satan is bad, but Satan was not viewed as bad. To us as a people, there is not good and bad. There is good and what exists when it's not good. But what exists when it's not good is not always bad. It's not always what you want, but it's not always bad, because what is not good destroys. But there are times in life where you must destroy in order to build. And so this is why there were pharaohs, Neset Bitis, that we call Neset Bitis. There were Neset Biti or pharaohs whose name was Set. They were not taking the name of evil. They were taking a name of the concept of having to destroy the Amu or the Yurugu's civilization in order to rebuild the African civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And so to African people, the way they balanced and looked at life and developed a philosophy of life. Now, Sister Shanice, things weren't always great in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We have our problems.
Mm-hmm.
We have our saints and we have our sinners.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout history, African philosophy was never based in the negative aspects of life like Western civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And whether we realize it or not, and because we're living in 2022, and for those that really haven't studied history, we don't realize that there has never been a European civilization that has lasted more than 500 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hear people say here in America, they say, what's happening to our democracy? America has never been democratic.
True, true.
It's never been democratic.
Mm-hmm.
America was born in death and destruction
Mm-hmm.
of indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
American economy is based on the back of Black people stolen from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
The economy of Europe is based on the destruction of the indigenous people of the Caribbean islands and in Central South America.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the enslavement of African people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The English-speaking Caribbean built up UK.
Mm-hmm.
French-speaking Caribbean built up France.
Mm-hmm.
Holland was built by the Africans, stolen and brought to Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, and Suriname.
Mm-hmm.
They've never been democratic,
Mm-hmm.
and they've never been Christian.
Mm-hmm. True, true. And a lot of people might find that hard to believe. Say that again. They have never been Christian. These are the evangelists that have been going around the world converting people to Christianity. And you've just said they've never been Christians. People might find that a bit hard to believe.
But you know, sister and family, when you study the life that they portend to be Jesus the Christ,
Mm-hmm.
this brother walked the earth sometime with one sandal because he couldn't afford another sandal. The story of Jesus Christ coming out of the desert after fasting for 40 days and 40 nights.
Mm.
One of his students would come with a cool glass of water. And they'd say, Master Teacher, this is for you. And Jesus would look over and see a child that was thirsty and say, no, give the water to the child.
Mm-hmm.
Yet here in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
what the European Christian did when they wanted to exhibit the hate that they had for a Black person, they would set their cross, that was the icon for their religion, on fire. And they would burn a cross on the lawns of Black people to tell them how much they feared them and how much they hated them. The very icon of their religion of Christianity, they burned to show their detestation of a person. That's a Christian?
Mm-hmm.
When the Greek Empire existed, 85% of Greeks were enslaved. And they say, we got our democracy from Greece. When Persians under Cambyses first went into Africa to conquer them in 525 BC, they came in with nothing, stole everything. But by 332 BC, the Greeks had come in and displaced the Persians. So the Persian Empire only existed in Africa for 181 years at most. By 30 BC, the Romans came in and displaced the Greeks. So the Greek civilization only lasted a little over 330 years in Africa. The Roman Empire had fallen by 426. They started falling in the 300s, but I'll give them a little time, 426. So from 30 BC to 426, about 56 years was the Roman Empire. And then Europe went into darkness. And it wasn't until 711 when Africans went in, the Moors went in and ruled Europe up until 1492. A little over 770, 780 years, give or take. And so from 1492 until now, we've been dealing with this Oman Empire. They have never sustained the civilization. Yet the first dynasty of Kemet, Kush, lasted over 2,100 years with basically 6 families running things. 2,100 years. The African Moors ruled for over 780 years. And yet Western civilization can't get past 500 years.
Can I ask a question here? And then I'll bring in the chat, please, Professor Kaba, on the topic that you're on right now. You know, when we look back in terms of learning from history and their empires falling, you know, I wonder to what extent did they give the Africans who had the knowledge of empire building and running sophisticated civilizations, to what extent did they give the Africans positions within those empires? If they didn't, could that have significantly contributed towards those empires collapsing sooner rather than later? And if it is a fact that they didn't embrace those Africans in the way that they are to some extent today, embracing Africans and draining the brains of Africans, they developed now quite a sophisticated way of you know, capitalizing on the skills and the knowledge that they know we as Africans have, and utilizing it now in a way to sustain their system and the status quo. And the vast majority of us but go through their miseducation system and then find jobs within their institutions and organizations are, we maybe unwittingly could say, contributing to our own destruction and our own downfall by sustaining their system instead of allowing it to collapse. Have they, do you think, maybe recognized the errors of the past, the Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, and it collapsing and not lasting, and therefore maybe now with this system, as we can see here in the UK and in America and other parts of the world, where they've actually got Africans in positions of scientists and a whole range of other fields now contributing towards sustaining their system. Are we indirectly, unwittingly contributing towards sustaining this demonic system that, you know, the world has in place today?
It's falling.
Regardless,
yes.
It's falling. Mm-hmm.
Regardless, it's falling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And those of us who are getting into these types of positions of understanding and power will be the ones that can sustain it in the future. This is how it's always happened. When you look at history, great scholar by the name of Dr. Wade Nobles says that Western philosophy and Western civilization, he compares it to vomit. Although that's a nasty metaphor, it's one that most people never forget. When Indo-Europeans sat at the feet of Africans, the meal that they ate, the knowledge and wisdom that they took, was a very rich meal. And the Western civilization did not have the intellectual or spiritual enzymes to digest the meal.
Mm-hmm.
And like all things that can't be broken down, they'll be released out.
Mm-hmm.
Vomit. The educational system is vomit.
Mm-hmm.
The economic system is vomit.
Mm-hmm.
This is the richness of the African contributions of philosophy and economics and all the things that Africans tried to teach these lowly creatures, but they just couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are living in a Western civilization that we are living in vomit. But we are warned, don't throw that vomit away. You definitely don't want to eat it. You don't want to smell it. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to necessarily take it in with any of the senses, but you do want to examine it. Because in that vomit is the original meal. And in examining the original meal, you can find out what was on the plate, recook that meal. Because melanated people have the intellectual and spiritual enzymes to digest the meal. The concept of spirituality before religion was meant to show our people that every religion that exists, from agnostic to Zoroastrian, came from the minds of African people. The book I wrote was never meant to make a Christian no longer be Christian. It wasn't written for a Muslim to leave Islam. It wasn't meant for a Hebrew not to respect the Old Testament or any of the other religions. What I wanted to do was to examine the original meal and Africanize your Christian faith, Africanize Islam, Africanize Hebrew, because it came from you. I don't have a problem with the Bible. I have a problem with the Western interpretation. I don't have a problem with the surahs of the Quran. I have a problem with the Indo-European interpretation of the surahs.
Mhm.
I don't have a problem because Shabaka Stone, the third book I wrote, is actually the Old Testament and the New Testament brought together. The pyramid text
Mhm.
is actually where the Roman Catholic Church got their mass, the ritual of their mass, from.
Mhm.
So I don't have a problem with the holy books. I have a problem with the contaminated interpretations of the holy books.
Mhm.
And so as we move forward, I encourage us to be a part of the system, which would be like examining the vomit. But just know that it's vomit. Don't look at this system like it's going to work.
Mhm.
It was born to die.
Mhm.
It is not based in ma'at. It's not based in truth.
Mhm.
It's not based in balance or harmony. It's not based in those fundamental principles:
Mhm.
order, arrangement, honor, integrity, and reciprocity. That's my favorite characteristic of ma'at.
Mhm.
Reciprocity.
Mhm.
What go around comes around. You
Karma.
shall reap what you sow.
Ashe, Ashe. Professor Kaba, can we go over to the chat and bring in some comments and thoughts from our audience, please? Wow,
Sure.
wow, wow. Sorry to even cut you there. Wow, family, what a conversation we've been having with Professor Kaba. We've been getting to know the man himself, have we not? Let me just flick over to the chat and randomly bring in a few comments. And before I do, just want to let you know that I have posted links to Professor Kaba's website. Okay, his contact details are in there, how you can get a copy of his book. I've definitely got to order a copy of that book as well, and get that book, Spirituality Before Religions. Okay, spirituality before religions. What we know is that we were great, were we not, as a people prior to religions? Let's have a look in the chat. Watching the Hawks is saying, yes, we could be wiped out if we allow America and Europe having biolabs in our communities around Africa, the Pacific, and the Caribbean. Well, I think that goes back to the part of conversation where Professor was saying, they are doing what they need to do for their own genetic survival, for their own survival. And watching the Hawkins agreeing and saying we could be wiped out if we allow them to continue having their biological laboratories, testing our DNA as they do and all the rest of it. We could be in a situation where we find ourselves being wiped out. Could we not? What say you, Professor Kaba, to that? Are we potentially in a situation, they're doing what they need to do for their own survival. We overs and we understand that. And they've got biological labs, all over Africa, all over America, various parts of the world. Russia's been exposing all of these laboratories that they've got. We believe that they are aimed and targeted at our demise, for our genocide. What say you, Professor Kaba?
No matter what they try,
Mm-hmm.
they will never be able to do their plan.
This is music to my ears.
It's just, and again, this is a message I have to the children, because I do realize that there are reasons why we should be alert and aware. We should be concerned, but not panicked. They're dying out as a people, but they were born to die. And it's not the first time. When you study the work of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, you can see of the 6 forms of human beings, Australopithecus robustus was the first form of human being that we have recorded. Yet, the ones that could survive moved on, and the ones that could not perished. The ones that survived became Australopithecus gracile, the second form.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that survived continued, and the ones that couldn't died off. Gracile became Homo habilis, the tool maker. The ones that survived moved on to become Homo erectus, and the ones that couldn't died out. Homo erectus continued on to become Homo sapiens, and the ones that moved on stayed in place, and the ones that couldn't died out. The ones that survived became Homo sapiens sapiens, all of them leaving Africa, and the ones that couldn't died out. And now here we are at a certain form of Homo sapiens sapien on our way to what we call super sapiens. And the ones that could survive are moving on, and the ones that could not are dying out. Because of their exposure to the ice, the first thing that Europeans should have done, Eurasians, I should say, the northern peoples, the first things they should have done when they came out of the mountains, the ice mountains of Europe, the Caucasus, Himalayas, the first thing they should have done was found the blackest person to return back to the original human family. But instead they were xenophobic and they forbid to mate together with the original. So they only mated amongst themselves. And so who we're dealing with today is not the mutations. We're dealing with the mutations of the mutations. And for various reasons, they're dying out. Skin cancer, global warming. These folk out here denying global warming.
Are they not taking us with them in very large numbers? I mean, they've wiped out the original Africans you were saying earlier, of Australia, of New Zealand, of Canada, of China, you know, of Europe. You know, we populated the entire globe. We were the original people of the entire globe, and there are many parts of the world now where we are in very small numbers or don't hardly exist at all. So this dying race of people are doing the best to take us out with them.
That's their purpose. Because the ones that survive are going to be even better for having had this experience.
Wow. So only the fittest of the fittest.
Yeah, well, you see, my concept is that the Assyrian drama tells us that in all movements forward, there's always sacrifice. That's what Christianity tells us. That in order for Christianity to move forward, Jesus had to be sacrificed. It's a metaphor. You know, I'm not telling you that this is a real story. I'm saying this is the metaphor. In the Assyrian drama, in order for Heru to be born, Osiris had to die. In all movements forward, there is always the sacrifice. And many times, much of the sacrifice are the innocent.
We have our true story of sacrifice as well, don't we? Our revolutionary freedom fighters. In order for us, to free ourselves from colonialism, we had so many freedom fighters who sacrificed their life, and as you said, so many innocent people who died in the process so that we could gain a level of independence and the level of freedom that we have today. Still on that journey, still got a long way to go, but the sacrifice,
That is it. Mali say, how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We have to fulfill the book.
Is it in the book? Let's see what Judge had said. Jughead, Brother Joe saying, correct, Amin Nuran, voting is for cowardly, disorganized fools who are too lazy to organize and do for self, as Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, Dr. Khalid Muhammad instructed us to do. So we're going to come back for some comments on that. So you were responding to something that Arminman said, who said, we are going into the matrix now, the matrix now. Even voting is out of date, a weapon for the oppressor is voting. I think that goes back to the conversation or the point made earlier about the importance for us to organize so that our vote can be counted. And Armin said that that's going into the matrix and that voting is out of date because they're now using that as a weapon. And Judge Head was in agreement with that and saying that basically we need to be organizing to do for self. Let's get a response from you, please, to those comments.
There's no question that we have to organize. There's no doubt we have to get the paralysis out of the analysis. And I say to us, we're going out to war. There's a gun, a knife, and a pen on the table. What are you going to do? Some people say, I'm going to pick up the gun. Okay. What happens if you run out of bullets?
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, I'll pick up the knife. Okay. What happens if you drop the knife or your knife gets dull? The point I'm making is that even though a pen may not be seen as a weapon, you can use it as one.
Right.
The point that I'm making is that everything works. Don't leave anything on the table. Everything works. I'm an advocate for coming at someone at war with everything you got on your A+ game. Leave nothing on the table, no matter how ridiculous it may look, no matter how it may look. And also, as it relates to the matrix, it's also important when you look at it from another type of perspective. When people say, I'm teaching our people so that they can get out of the box. I'm telling our people, there is no box. It's an illusion. Because if some of our people are in the box and some are outside of the box, then through the illusion, we can't see each other. What I'm saying is go beyond the matrix. The matrix is an illusion. And what I'm saying is that we have got to get the paralysis out of the analysis so that we understand that we are at war. Not just physically, mentally, spiritually, and soulfully. But the other thing that's important in terms of answering back that question, which is fundamental to me and quite well put, you only have one enemy. You're born with a Judas and a Messiah. The Judas was meant for you never to be able to fulfill your divine destiny. It's in each and every one of us. It's that voice that keeps telling you, you can't do that. You're not able to do that. You're not qualified to do that. You don't have the kind of education that you need. That's the Judas that's always trying to get you to pull back from your divine destiny. Your Messiah was born to make sure Judas fails. So Judas may fall 9 times, but your Messiah rises 10. And once you realize, and once you put Judas in his or her place, then everything else outside of you is not your enemy. It's an obstacle that you got to get over.
So my understanding is that if we rise to our fullest potential as individuals, if we rise to who we're supposed to be, our divine purpose, then wherever we are, in whatever position we're in, we ought to be in a position to control and conquer.
And be able to reach our divine destiny. We were born for a purpose. You know, my sister Shanice, and to all those that are listening, A woman is born with every egg that she will ever produce. In her life, she doesn't produce an egg. She either will release it in her monthly cycle, it will be fertilized to create life, or she will die with it as a mature elder woman. That's what science teaches us. If that's true, when your grandmother was born, she had the egg of your mother in her when she was born. If that is true, then when your grandmother was born with the egg of your mother had you.
Yeah.
Think of what I'm saying. When your grandmother was born, so were you. All it took was a process of life to bring forward your mother and then to bring forward you. But if that's true, then when your grandmother's great-grandmother was born, you were born too. When you go back to your great-grandmother to the nth power, you were born. Which means that each and every one of us has always existed. And we were waiting to be brought from word to flesh when daddy's X or Y chromosome fertilized your mommy's egg. But now let me drop the other shoe. And I thank Ancestral Footprints Instagram for this. I've taken it to math. I've taken it to a mathematical equation. And the mathematical equation I call the exponential expansion equation. Exponential expansion equation. You're born with 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, on down the line. If we were to consider a generation to be 25 years, some people say a generation is 20 years, some say 25, some say 30. Let's go in the middle with 25. 25 generations, 25 years to one generation. Let me take you back 20 generations, which would be 500 years ago. I'm going to take you back to 1522. We ask ourselves in terms of our ancestors, combined with what I just told you before about grandma and mitochondrial DNA. How many ancestors did it take for Sister Shanice to come into existence? Using this mathematical equation.
I'd have to get my calculator out.
Well, I'm going to give you the number. You don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
For 500 years to bring you into existence, it took 1,048,576 human beings.
Wow.
To bring you into existence.
Wow.
That's how many ancestors you have over the past 500 years.
Wow.
But hold on. I only took you back 500 years.
Wow.
Suppose I took you back 5 million.
Hey.
So you think you're alone? Our ancestors on the plantation, they knew they walked with their ancestral line.
Yeah.
They knew that they had always existed. Even before the beginning began, they existed in the waters of Nun. That's the Shabaka stone.
Yeah.
What existed before existence existed? What existed before the beginning began? We, each and every one of us, has always existed through all time and space, and even before time and space existed.
Wow.
And we have allowed the lowest of the low to come amongst us. And I think that is why the European was born. to teach us a fundamental lesson. And that fundamental lesson is the lowest of the low can bring down the highest of the high.
Wow.
When the highest of the high forget who they are and start fighting amongst themselves. Everywhere that I have studied our history, I have never seen Indo-Europeans coming into Africa and defeating Africans. I have seen them exploiting the fact that we are fighting amongst ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it be the Moors in 1492, whether it be the Kush Kemet at the end of the 6th dynasty, whether it be any area, the civil rights movement, when we were in Africa and Europeans came, they came in with us fighting amongst ourselves. Even when you look at the Romans that come in and defeat Carthage, Africans in Tunis, in Carthage, was fighting Hannibal. Even when you look at when they actually came in during the Punic Wars, you will see that the Africans of Tunis in Carthage were fighting the kingdoms of Numidia in Morocco. And they came in and they gave Numidians certain powers, certain weapons and certain ways for the Numidians, Africans, to fight their brothers and sisters, the Carthaginians. And after the Romans beat Carthage, then they enslaved the Numidians.
Yes, the same people who helped them to beat the Carthaginians. Yes. And we don't
As
know
African
from history.
people, we have to know the difference. We have to be able to define what a friend is, what an enemy is, and what an ally is. Because as Malcolm X tells us, during World War II, Germany, Italy, and Japan were our enemies. Russia and China were our allies. At the end of the war, Russia and China, our allies, became our enemies, and Germany, Italy, and Japan became our friends. See, Black folk hang on to allies thinking they're friends. But what we don't realize is that those who you ally yourself with during battle, after the battle is won, they can become more of an enemy to you than the enemy you both allied yourself to defeat. We hang on to our allies too long. And we got to know the difference between a friend, an ally, and an enemy.
Most definitely. Even during these times as well, with the war happening in Ukraine and Africa being dragged into that as well. My, we are 3 minutes away from the top of the hour already. We started a little late today, so we do have a few extra minutes. So let's hope that everyone in the audience is hanging on in there with us. I see we've got Blackacres of the Gambia in the house who are saying, speak, my brother, speak. Rise up, Ricky and Cynthia, great YouTubers there. And we rise you up. Let's bring in one or two more comments. Let me whiz down a bit into the comments and see what's being talked about here. Right, what's this comment here from, oops, I've just gone past that one, sorry about that. Hazel's saying, wonder, love of the world now. Oh, not sure what that is. Gebra, rise up, Gebra in the house. Saying something is in the shoe air. I was just saying this yesterday, not sure about that. Pierre, what were you saying? Can Dr. Kaba explain how the Ice Age made Black Africans become white? Straight blonde hair, blue eyes, small nose. I think that is a completely separate presentation to deal with that one. But it's a big one, and a number of.
But may I address certain points of that, my sister, because I think it's very important. Basically, there were 4 major ice ages, according to Louis Agassiz. He is the one that brought this concept of the ice age in place. And there's evidence that shows that there is a warming and cooling trend on the planet. Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop tells us that north of the 51st latitude line, which cuts Europe in half, it cuts Ireland in half, it cuts England in half. It almost creates like a cap on the head of the earth. 51st parallel. I have a webinar up dealing with this concept. And Africans, there were four. There was the Guns, there was the Mindel, the Ris, and the Worm. The Worm came in two different phases, but we don't have to worry about the Guns, the Mindel, or the Ris, because Dr. Diop says humans were not in that part of the world at that time. But during the interstadial, which is a warming trend between ice ages, Africans migrated 60,000, maybe 50,000 years ago. Melanated people, kinky hair, wide nose, thick lips. And all ice ages start in Greenland and span across, and they come underground. So what happened was that the ice mountains, the Caucasus Mountains, the Himalayas were frozen. But Africans didn't know that because they moved in during a temperate type of time where it wasn't cold like the ice age. And so when Africans were locked into the northern area, there's two things they did. It's the same thing that we did this winter. You did it in UK. I did it here in the United States in New York. You put on more clothes and you stay indoors more. Africans put more clothes on and went into caves. But the thing is, you have epidermal and you have your dermal in your skin. You have 5 layers in your epidermal. You have the stratum corneum, stratum luciderm, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, and stratum basale. In the bottom 2 layers, in the spinosum and the basale, you have a biochemical known as 7-dehydrocholesterol. When the light and heat energy of the sun touches your skin, it is captured and drawn into the bottom 2 layers. We all say vitamin D is good for you, but nobody tell you there's 4 types of vitamin D. D1, D2, D3, D4. If you go to a health food store, ask for vitamin D, look at the label. It'll always say D3. Because D1 and D2 is inactive. It's just right there in your skin. But when the sunlight comes down and is impacted by the 7-dehydrocholesterol, D1, D2 is made into active D3, D4. D3 is what you want, which then allows your body to assimilate calcium through your bodies. But it creates a melanated skin. Now, when you in UK, I'm in United States, we in part of the United States that experiences cold climate. What happens to us? One thing is we depigment ourselves. Every winter, Sister Shanice, no matter how melanated we may be, we depigment. Now, we don't turn depigmented altogether, but we do lose pigment. And also the texture of our hair changes. It gets a little straighter. In the summertime, even European people have kinky hair, but they don't call it kinky. They call it frizzy. But their hair goes south too, because in the heat, your hair will kink. And so what we're experiencing now is, and again, that would take a lot of time to tell that story about how the hair is kinky and how it became straight. But the bottom line is, because we moved away from the sun, that's why I say solar power is the future wealth. Everything we are is because of the sun. In the cold weather, it impacts your skin, it impacts your body type, it impacts the length of your limbs. There are 3 laws: Gloser, Allen, and Bergman's laws. This is science, family. This ain't personal. This is not superiority and inferiority. This is about dominant and recessive. The sun makes you dominant. The lack of the sun makes you recessive. And so the bottom line is we depigmented ourselves over thousands of years. Science says it takes about 16 generations for a melanated, kinky hair, wide nose, thick lip African to become a blonde, blue-eyed, depigmented person. And as that goes on, it becomes worse. But the Europeans we're dealing with today are inbreeding amongst themselves. So they're not mutations. They are mutations of the original mutation. And Europeans have not existed any more than maybe at most 8,000 years. And Asians that we know today didn't exist no more than 5,000 years.
There's another really old population that's lived in the ice region for, centuries and haven't lost their pigmentation as such. And this is what people often point to that, question that theory. These are the Eskimos who, still have their features and, their pigmentation, but they live, in those ice conditions. And there's another species that, that's part of that evolution theory that you spoke of, that they say they get some of their DNA features from, their characteristics from, and that's the Neanderthals that's been mentioned in the chat here. What's your view of the fact that geneticists are saying that the white people as we know them today get their diseases and their pigmentation from Neanderthals that they say they evolved from and still have in their DNA?
Well, from my research, Neanderthals was another form of Homo sapiens. And they came from Africa and into Europe. But when Homo sapiens in Africa migrated into Europe, there was still Neanderthals living in Europe. Mm-hmm. And they inbred. Mm-hmm. And that's why you can find in Europeans the Neanderthal blood, but you can't find it in Africans. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they had already moved through that process of going from Homo sapiens to Homo sapiens sapiens, so that there was no inbreeding amongst the Homo sapien and the Homo sapiens sapien. As it relates to the Inuit people, who are derogatorily called Eskimo, they did not.
My apologies.
No, it's all right, because these are terms like pygmy is a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Khoi is the Khoi, the Khoisan derogatorily are called Hottentot and Bushmen. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that they did not experience the Ice Age. Mm-hmm. They had already moved, because look at us. Look how many times did we experience this weather. We ain't turned white.
No. Mm-hmm.
And that's because we did not experience those devastating thousands of years of the Ice Age. The Inuit did not experience the Ice Age. So they were able to maintain their melanation and their facial features, because they moved into an area that escaped the Ice Age, and they did not go through that manipulation of their skin complexion or their body type. Mm-hmm. So that who we call the Inuit is a different type of individual that moved from the south to the north and then was able to move out of the region of the 51st parallel.
Okay, just to let you know, this is an area that we have been exploring and we've been discussing and debating in some detail on our shows, on the Sister Shanice show.
My Sister Shanice,
yeah.
Please let me say this also.
Yeah.
As someone who respects information and education, I ask your audience not to believe a word I say. I'm not here to make you believe me. Yeah. I'm here to make you think. And I charge future generations to take this information to the next level.
Enough respect. There's your charge, yes.
It becomes important for us not to talk to make people believe us.
Yeah.
Sheikh Anta Diop did not have a Sheikh Anta Diop in his life. So I see and hear people criticize Dr. Diop, but every generation does the best they can with what they have.
Yes.
Drusilla Dunjee Houston wrote the wonderful Ethiopians and their Kushite empire.
Mm.
She did the best she could with the information she had. William Leo Hansberry, he did the best he could, but it is on William Leo Hansberry and Drusilla Dunjee Houston and Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. Edward Scobie and Dr. Shashi McIntyre and all those great scholars that came before me that I build my body of information.
Yeah.
And am I right? I believe I could be more accurate, but I'm doing the best I can with the information I have.
Yeah, yeah.
And I charge future generations, just as Dr. Diop challenged us, the younger scholars, to take his work to the next level.
The next level. Rise up,
I am charging our children's children's children to take this work, to take spirituality before religions, Shabaka Stone, tear it apart, open it up, find out take the best and leave the rest, make the sense out the nonsense. But let's understand that each generation is doing the best they can with what they have. The work that, again, I got to go back to my sister, Dr. Marie Charles. The work that she's doing is phenomenal.
Yes, yes.
She is taking the work of the past and bringing it into the present for the future to take that work and bring it into their future.
Yes, yes.
So we have to get to a point where when we have these types of conversations, we take these conversations not to be believed, but to be researched. And that's why I tell people, go to my website, go to www.kabakamene.com, download my free e-course, my free study guide, study the books that I'm telling you, study the information, look at the way in which I'm presenting it and take it to the next level. And when you take it to the next level, call me and school me, because I have a lot to learn. In fact, the more I learn, how much more I have to learn.
Ashe. And this is the information age, family. So whereas back in the days of, say, Sheikh Anta Diop, he'd have to go to the library, find all of the books and, read all of those books and maybe even travel to get access to a lot of those books. We can get access to a lot of that knowledge and information via the internet. So, we all should be doing our research. And that is precisely what Dr. Clive Winters was encouraging us all to do as well, Professor Kaba, to all become researchers and to all do the works ourselves. Wow, wow, wow. There is so much, as you were saying, you went back just 5 generations and you talked about, the number of ancestors that were involved in bringing us into being, by just going back 500 years. And so, it's phenomenal the amount of lives and experiences that existed just within the 500 years in terms of the research that needs to be done. But what also, what I remember came to mind, you were speaking about us being in existence, way back before we were actually conceived. At the same time, you made me realize again that now that I am here, all of those that were behind me are still in me as well. And as Dr. Winters will say, our DNA has memory. And so if we learn how to tap into that DNA, all of what, you're saying, we should be able to go way back because, we were back then as a seed. From what you said to us, we were a seed back then. We were maybe a DNA seed back then during the Ice Age, if we were in that region. So we would have lived it and experienced it. And if we learn how to read our DNA and tap into that knowledge, we'll have that information. Wow, wow, wow. It's just phenomenal, really, when we break it down. The time has actually flown by. Maybe just one more question or one more point or comment from the chat. To those who are giving us the thumbs up, Sister Afrijamo, thank you so much. Yes, please do remember to give us a like. Afrijamo, subhuman biological mistakes. That's who they are. Are we taking the analysis, the paralysis out of the analysis and getting emotional here? subhuman biological mistakes, or is there genetical evidence to prove that they are subhuman mistakes? I think that's the Urugu theory, the Jakob theory that's been spoken about there. Again, you know, this, you can tell there's a lot of interest in their origins, and that's a real interesting topic, maybe for another time. Kwame saying, true that, I called it the Gaddafi I love in effect. Bleaching, Neanderthals, the atom equal Adam equal atom. Armin is saying atom. Kalifani is saying 4.5 billion years and no Adam. So different conversations going on there. Professor Kaba, so if you want to pick up on that, was Kalifani saying the destruction of African civilization, the insider threat is most severe to any nation. The West charged treason to all sedition. Yeah, the destruction, we have been our own destruction. And I think, yeah, our professor gave us some wonderful examples in our history where, you know, we've only got ourselves to blame for our own destruction. Wow. You know what, you know, Professor Kaba, there's been so much of your works that, you know, I have listened to, I have become aware of, and even in terms of spirituality. So I know that you didn't even get time to scratch the surface today in terms of, you know, all of the wisdom and knowledge from your research that you could potentially have brought to us today. And the time has just prevented us from continuing because, well, we are 2 hours into today's show, but I certainly hope that you will come back. I certainly hope that you won't be a stranger to this platform because we've all got so much learning to do. And as we say here, you know, each one teach one. So as we learn from you, it's our duty then to go and do more research and to teach ourselves as well. And if we're all learning and all always teaching, then, you know, that will help us, I would imagine, as a people to be able to go forward and not make the same mistakes as the past, which is what ultimately I think we all want to be doing, not making the same mistakes that we made in the past that led to our downfall. Can I go over to you for some final words and comments before we close today, Professor Kaba?
My sister Shanice, I'm a teacher, so I have to give the class some homework.
Okay.
And the homework that I'd like to give you is the first homework assignment that Professor John Henry Clark gave me when I met him when I was 12 and a half.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
I want each and every one of us to look in the mirror and tell the person you're looking at, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't do that, there is nothing anyone outside of you can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to love ourselves. We have to love the texture of our hair, the complexion of our skin, the width of our nose, the size of our lips. We have to love the way we look.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to know that each and every one of us is the creator having a human experience.
Wow.
And as we treat the creator's creations, we should treat them as we treat ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you loved yourself as a creator, then you would recognize the creator in everyone else and in everything else that the creator has created. And you would respect nature and do what is necessary to move forward.
Wow.
I also want you to know that we will make it to the promised land. We have the DNA of the pyramid builders, the DNA of the plantation. We have the DNA of those that lived in projects. But we also have the reality that we are heading towards the promised land. And I want our young people to understand this. Because you see, sometimes young people don't have the collective experience that we have. And so what they see a lot of times become very permanent. And I go to when those 9 wonderful humans were murdered by that crazed gunman. in South Carolina. They asked me
Mm.
to South Carolina. I said, no, I don't want to be a part of the circus. Because everybody was going down telling people in South Carolina what they need to do. You need to do this, you need to do that. South Carolinians did not need anybody to tell them what they do. South Carolinians knew exactly what they had to do. I don't go to UK. When I went to UK, I didn't tell my brothers and sisters in UK what they need to do. You know London, you know Birmingham. I wanted to come at a time when I could share my experiences as your brother and sister from the United States, from the Bronx. And so when I went to South Carolina, I organized a meeting with the community, and we sat in a circle. And there was a mother that said she was so concerned about her daughter because her daughter said she didn't want to go to church no more. And for religious people, for your daughter to say, you know, I don't want to go to church no more, that hurt. That was the worst thing she could have heard her daughter tell her. Now, mind you, this is after the murder in the church. And so I didn't get into it right away, but as I went around, I went back to the young lady. I would say she may have been 9 or 10 years old. And I simply asked her, I say, how do you feel about church? She said, I don't want to go to church. And I said, is there a reason? And the mother thought she lost faith in God. She said, well, I heard mommy and auntie talking, and they said that you're not even safe in church no more, they'll kill you. It's not that she lost faith in God. It's that the adults were talking around her. And she heard that if you go to church, they're going to shoot you. That's why she didn't want to go to church. She didn't want to get shot. We don't know as adults what we say around our children. And since I've spent my life with children in schools, I've learned how a child thinks. And so when we keep saying you can't even go to the supermarket anymore. Well, they're going to be children tell you, I don't want to go to Tops no more, or I don't want to go to Piggly Wiggly. Because in their mind as a child, they don't have the collective memory to know, I didn't mean that the moment you go into the supermarket, you're going to get shot, or the moment you go into the church, you're going to get shot. I meant that, wow, look at how unsafe it is nowadays. Be careful what we say around our children. And let them know it's going to be all right. And if they knew the history of what brothers and sisters went through in UK, for you to be where you are, for them to know what brothers and sisters in the Netherlands and Holland went through, and in Brazil, and in Puerto Rico, and in the United States, if they knew what we actually went through, if I ever think I'm having a bad day, Sister Shanice, I wake up and apologize for what my ancestors went through.
Yeah.
I got it made.
Yeah. Yeah.
For what your ancestors went through in the early 1900s in UK, you got it made now. For us to be able to have this conversation, we got it made. The question is, what are we going to do? Don't wait for no one else to do what we should be doing for ourselves. And here's the final thing I want to say. After you look in the mirror and you tell yourself, I love you, and mean it, I want you to say, if it is to be, it's up to me.
Wow.
If it is to be, it's up to me. And then after you leave and you encounter other brothers and sisters, then I want you to say, if it is to be, it's up to we. If it is to be, it's up to we. What are we going to do, family?
Yeah.
We must do what we were born to do.
You know, wow. I don't know if you could quickly respond to this question here for us, please, Professor Kaba. You know, there are many of us that might be searching for that purpose. You know, some of us may not know what we were here to do. You said that we are the creators. We need to look in the mirror and see the creator within ourselves. But there's so much distraction going on in the world today, and so much pressure that's been put on us as a people to keep us distracted from, you know, finding our purpose. Any tips, any suggestions that you can also leave us with about how we go about finding our purpose in life?
Let me give you a concept that you can consider. This is what I tell children, because children ask me this. When I tell them, what's your divine purpose? They say, well, how do I know what my purpose is? I say, if I were to say to you, I'm going to give you an hour, and you can do whatever you want to do. You don't have to do homework, and you don't have to do anything that you have to do. What would you do? Because chances are what you would do for free. And because you would do it for free, chances are it is because you enjoy doing it. Chances are in your doing it, you would do it very well. What you would do very well could really build on what your divine gift is. So start there. What would you add an hour to do anything you wanted to do, but it didn't have to be something that you had to do, that you just, now you got a little bit of time, I'm gonna do it. This is free time for you to do whatever you would do. What would you do for free? Because chances are what you would do for free, you take pride in what you would do. You would enjoy doing what you do because you chose it. Nobody told you to do it. Start there and then build from that concept. What would you do for free if you were given an hour? You know, I don't tell everybody this, but I would teach for free. I appreciate being compensated. Okay.
It's your passion.
You can go on YouTube and you can see me standing on the corner of 125th Street in Harlem. Talking to people. For free. Because that's my passion. That's my divine. That's what I feel. Every chance I get is a teaching moment for me. My question is, what is your divine purpose? What is it that drives you? What is it that consumes you when you can have it, when you can do it? Would you play music? Would you draw a piece of art? Because everything we know about a civilization, we know through art. Everything we know about the philosophy, we know through dance and music. And so, what is your passion? And always remember, Albert Einstein said, imagination is better than knowledge. What do you imagine? What do you see beyond who you are? Your purpose, your life. You were born with that. And remember, we went back billions of years? Well, the universe has been waiting for you to fulfill that. That's why they gave it to you billions of years ago. You were born to, and the sad thing, Sister Shanice and family, is that some of us live our entire lives. And because of these distractions, we never really understand. Everybody wasn't born to be a doctor. Everybody wasn't born to be a lawyer. Now, everybody want to be that because they make money. But you weren't born to make money. Because when your heart is judged at the judgment scene, which is this Sunday's webinar that I'm going to be doing on the book of the coming forth and the judgment scene. When that happened, when you were brought into existence and your heart is judged with the feather of Ma'at, one of the saddest things that I have ever heard an elder say is, I wish I had done something else. Don't become an elder and wish you had done something else. No matter what it is, do it. Maybe you work for FedEx, maybe you work for the post office, or maybe you work at certain places, and that may not be all that you want to do. But what is it that you want to do? If you're an artist, keep drawing, keep doing art. If you're a musician, keep playing music. Never give up on your dream. And it's never too late. As long as you breathe, you always have a chance, no matter what your age. to be able to fulfill your destiny. Because when all is said and done, and they put you 6 feet under, what you taking with you? You're not taking all that money. You ain't taking that car. You ain't taking that house. The only thing that you're taking with you is your reputation and the life you lived on the planet. Solar power is the future wealth of the planet. Teach it to our children. Nuclear fusion is the cornerstone to the greatest wealth. There'll be no heirs you can put at the end of your name. Ain't no millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire. Your wealth will be so comprehensive, it'll be like the energy that comes from the sun. It is forever and it is everywhere. There'll be no way that people can measure your wealth. Once we tap into fusion, nuclear fusion, and solar power. And again, as I end out, isn't it wonderful that every place where the sun shines the brightest, bringing the most light, heat, and sound energy to the planet, the people are the most melanated. The Creator put wealth in your backyard. Teach it to the children so they can take us to where we got to go. The promised land. Keep on keeping on, family. It ain't over till we win.
Thank you so, so much, Professor Kaba. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful note to end on there. Family, family. You know, you got your homework, look in the mirror. I think you're going to have to, you know, look at yourself, you know, butt naked, everything, you know, just look at yourself, love yourself, and see the Creator that's in yourself, and just know that the Creator of all creation has put you where you need to be with everything that you need, giving you everything to be able to fulfill your purpose. And thanks for giving us
and
the
please,
key
my
as
sister,
well.
may I say something else?
Yeah.
Please, may I say just one more thing? I know this is something that I didn't say. Please,
okay.
Family, support your scholars.
Yes.
Support Clyde Winters. He's
Yes.
got a whole phenomenal group of books.
Yes.
Support
Yes.
Dr. Marie Charles.
Yes.
Support the work that I'm doing.
Definitely.
Because the more you support me, the more I can support you. Support Sister Shanice.
Thank you.
Make it so that this program continues.
Mm-hmm.
I think you found your passion, my sister. I think you found your
I was thinking that as you were talking, because I do this for free, just providing the platform, you know, the organizational work that goes in behind the scenes. It's all, you know, selfless for volunteering for free, but I do it because it's my passion, and I think maybe that's part of my purpose. And yes, I've got Dr. Marie, one of her books. I've got Dr. Winters' book on the way to me. I'm going to have to get your book as well, you know. I've become a Patreon supporter of Dr. Winters. Do you have a Patreon as well?
No, I don't, but I have Cash App. But please, my sister, may I tell you this?
Mm-hmm.
With due respect, and I do understand free, but finances is what makes you be able to do what you got to do.
That's true. The bills still do have to be paid.
Yes, they do. And the less you have to worry about those bills, the more you can build what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Always remember, a poor revolutionary leads a poor revolution.
Thanks for that reminder. So family, thanks in advance for all your support. You know, please do support the scholars that come onto this platform in any way that you can. Please do buy their books, go to their website, share their works, you know, spread the information and their teaching. You know, if they've got Cash Apps, support their Cash Apps. If they've got Patreon, join their Patreons. You know, come on, family, only we can do for we. It's one thing talking about, you know, bringing about the change that we want to see, but it's another thing being that change, because we are the ones who are going to have to make that change. And we've got to love each other so much that we will only want to support what each other is doing. We've got to love ourselves and love our family and love our people so much that all we want to do is to help them and to support them. So, you know, that's the next leg of our journey. Wow, I could keep going for another 2 hours, to be honest, Professor Kaba, but, I know we've got to let you go, and I've got to let the family and the audience go as well. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor. I really do hope that, it's not just going to be a one-off visit, but that you will, be giving us another date when you can come back again and address our platform, those of us in the UK. And I certainly hope that we'll be able to build up a relationship with you, one where we can continue to learn from your wisdom and support your works, and one where, those who are going out and doing the research can share some of that with you as well. Professor Kaba, more power, more strength, more vodun. Thank you so much. So everybody in the chat, thank you so much. Continue to have a fantastic, bombastic, blacktastic day. Find your purpose, love yourself, love your family, and support in any way that you can. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Thank you, family. Vodun power to one and all. More love. Thank you.